In the battle against global warming, California has been on the front lines. Since 2002, the state legislature has voted to cut greenhouse gas emissions, lower carbon levels in transportation fuels, and improve the efficiency of cars traveling on our streets and highways. The focus of these and other efforts has been to slow and ultimately reverse some troubling trends in passenger vehicle use and the damage those cars are doing to the Earth's atmosphere. Now, with passage of SB 375, California has broken important new ground. For the first time, the state has linked global warming reduction initiatives to smarter land use planning at the local level. A primary goal of the legislation, authored by State Senator Darrell Steinberg, is to encourage home building close to the workplace and along mass transit lines.
SB 375 represents an epiphany for the environmental movement because it's a bill that doesn't control growth, it's not a no-growth bill, it's not a slow-growth bill. It's a bill that's designed to recognize that there has to be housing to meet the needs for all the population growth of the state of California. One of the reasons that we think the bill is important is that we recognize that if we can't get housing to be built in the good locations, the housing will be built in other locations where there will be long commutes, and the environment will pay a price. SB 375 creates a system of incentives to try to encourage growth in good locations where we will be able to have less air pollution, more energy conservation, and less climate emissions.
SB 375 is important because it ensures a greater measure of certainty in the entitlement process. One of the problems here in this state is that the labyrinthine process of getting a project approved is so uncertain, so time-consuming, and so frustrating for builders. And SB 375 changes that dynamic.
One of the benefits of SB 375 is that you will be able to secure expedited permitting and review under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. CEQA takes a long time to go through in the best of circumstances. In fact, it's generally critical path.
We face many obstacles in this state to getting affordable housing built, but probably one of the biggest is the supply of land. To get affordable housing constructed in California, we generally need high-density zoned land, and there is a lot of political resistance to that on the local level. So one of the things that we have focused on in California is pushing local governments to zone more land at higher densities so that we can get those affordable units built. One of the most important aspects of SB 375 is that for the first time, it ensures that local governments don't just say they're going to zone enough land for housing, but it actually puts a deadline in place. It actually says to local governments, by year 3, you've got to have all the zoning in place to meet all of your need. And if they don't do it, which many local governments under the current scheme are reluctant to do, if they don't do it, there are penalties in place.
The Bay Area, as we just recently saw with the passage of Proposition 1A, is acutely supportive of public transportation. And the notion of marrying public transportation to dense zoning in and around transit-oriented developments is, I think, is the future of this state. And what people and local officials need to understand is if you want the transportation dollars, if you want the transportation infrastructure, you need to zone accordingly. And I say, use San Francisco as an example where we celebrate the density, we celebrate the mixed-use nature of our neighborhoods, ground floor retail, housing up above, where it's all mixed together. We have very vibrant neighborhoods, and that's exactly the way Contra Costa and Alameda and other counties who are getting transportation dollars need to go, whether it's along BART lines, whether it's along bus rapid transit routes. That is precisely where we need to have mixed-use, affordable housing developments and less parking.
One of the things that's also true about sustainable communities is not only are they environmentally friendly and attractive places to live, but they're also equitable. And SB 375 makes that a point. One of the legislative findings of SB 375 is that land use patterns have to change in order to address greenhouse gas emissions.
There are 3 things that enabled SB 375 to happen politically. What changed in 2008 was first the climate issue. AB 32 had been signed by the governor in 2006. The state had an ambitious goal to reduce climate emissions. Land use is a big part of that, and we needed to find a way to achieve the climate goals. Secondly, the builders and the local governments decided to participate in this legislative process rather than sitting back and opposing it. They rolled up their sleeves, laid out their issues, and worked hard to get a bill that would protect their fundamental interests as well as achieve the goals of the bill. I think the third reason that SB 375 was able to be enacted was the political leadership of Senator Darrell Steinberg.
It was almost like a harmonic convergence between various interests that heretofore had been on opposite sides of land use issues. That would be the home building community, the environmental community, local governments. They all coalesced around the idea of having smarter growth, including more urban versus suburban development. We want to work with counties and cities rather than at cross purposes to achieve what all want, and that is to build a sufficient supply of housing to keep pace with the growth in population and employment in jurisdictions throughout this region and every region of this state. And we believe that SB 375 will make that a reality.
The California Alliance for Jobs is a partnership of labor unions, the operating engineers, the laborers, and the carpenters, and about 2,000 contractors in California who basically build California's infrastructure. The roads, the water systems, high-speed rail now, those are our guys. The fact that you could bring together the diverse interests that were involved in SB 375 is a real testament to Senator Steinberg, his ability to really be a collaborator and bring everyone together. It was a very divisive issue. It was contentious in some cases, and it was sweeping. It is, without doubt, in my mind, the single most important piece of legislation that was passed this year. It's all about jobs. It's all about delivering projects. It's all about making sure that the taxpayer gets the best bang for the buck, because transportation projects are expensive. And there are a lot of projects right now that are already in the pipeline. How are those going to be impacted by SB 375? That's a whole thing that we need to monitor closely as we move forward.
What I envision is that we will have cooperation between the home building community, the environmental community, and local cities and counties in terms of producing the supply of housing necessary to keep pace with our natural growth and population, while also being environmentally sensitive, promoting sustainable home building, green building, to the benefit of all.
The bill came along at a time when Californians recognized that we need to change, and I think they're ready to embrace the change.